Good morning, good evening, depending upon what part of the world you're in. If it's Friday, it is the CEO series where we explore the journeys of prominent leaders and the impact they make across the globe. Today, we're honored to have with us Cedric Davis, a distinguished figure in the realm of aviation. He has navigated the skies as a captain of the Boeing 737, and also through his role as new hire pilot interviewer and instructor pilot for a major U.S. airline. Beyond his cockpit experience, he has served 12 years in the U.S. Air Force and is an active leader within the Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals. And with that, I'll welcome my brother. How are you, man?
I'm wonderful, Ron. How are you, sir?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm so honored to have you. As I told you before, I've always been a big fan of you, following you over the years, and I didn't know how close we were intertwined, but that's the way it is today. So I want to. We always like to start off with asking about walking us through your career journey. You've been in the aviation field for 30 plus years. Walk us through that journey from starting to where you are today.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, thanks for having me. It is my pleasure. Like you, I've been following you as well. So I've learned a lot through your social media and now talking to you in a different area. But 34 years, wow. 34 years of a career that is probably my dream now, but was not at the time. Like most young men growing up, had a dream to be a professional athlete. Unfortunately, that did not happen, and I say unfortunately, but maybe fortunately, it did not happen because now I'm in my dream career, and I love it every day. But with that being said, growing up, there wasn't a sport or anything that I did not try. I was very competitive. Me and my friends would play from sun up to sundown, every sport. And during high school, I played football and baseball. And at the end of my high school career, I thought I was going to be moving on to the next level, collegiate level. But again, that did not happen either. Similar to what you and I had talked about. Thought I was talented, but the scholarships from the universities that I applied to did not come in, and the ones that did come through, I did not appreciate what they were offering at the time, so I declined. Um, Growing up in a family that pushed you to get out of the home at 18 to do something, I had no backup plan. So
Right.
that plan was to join the U.S. Air Force, and I joined the Air Force after high school. And what I have a funny story I tell people all the time. The recruiter, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but he told me I could play baseball in the Air Force, and that's all I heard. I could play baseball. Well, that wasn't so. It was intramural softball. So I joined the Air Force. From that, I again didn't know what I wanted to do, but I guess God spoke to him as well as me, and he placed me in a career track of being an aircraft mechanic. So that was my first job in the Air Force. I became an aircraft mechanic. And with that job, I was able to meet the pilots and the flight crews that inspired me to become a pilot. So that was how it began. I graduated as an honor student in the aircraft maintenance field. From there, a year and a half on station where I was located at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. I was promoted to flight mechanic where I would fly with the airplane, would be the liaison between the flight crew and the current location or the base that we would be flying at. So they entrusted me and empowered me with those duties. And that's where the spark began. Talking to the flight crews, they told me if I could fix it, I can fly them. So that was the first message that I heard. If I can fix them, I can fly them. And there was one particular flight that I had that really, really was challenging. It required me to work 3 days continuous, night and day. I was working on fixing this problem. And I said, this is not me because the flight crew, the pilots were in the hotel. They were also in the local area enjoying themselves, and I was working. Not
Yeah.
that I'm afraid of work, but I wanted that lavish lifestyle.
Yeah.
So at the conclusion of that trip, I came back, I enrolled in college, and I started pursuing my pilot's license.
Really?
Yes. And while I was in the Air Force, I was able to complete my degree and get my pilot's license. And from there, started my civilian career, which started out at a company flying cargo around the world. So my journeys took me to Asia, to the Middle East, and across the world. So I flew the Boeing 747, um, which is one of the largest airplanes in the world in the commercial air arena. 747 100, 200, and 400. So worked with that company for about 19 years.
Really?
19 years flying cargo, and that was a learning experience. Learned so much about myself and the people I work with and leadership or lack thereof. And from that, um, landed my dream job after I could no longer take um, the
The stuff
I
you
would
would do.
yes, any more of what I was enduring, I decided to roll the dice, and I got hired by my current company, and I've been here for 8 years now.
Wow.
That was the best and happiest day. I've been giving opportunities such as to be an interviewer, where I seek talent, as well as now to make it a full circle, I can hire them and as well as train them.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, you talked about you learned a lot about yourself and you learned a lot about leadership. So those are the two things that we like to talk about. What was a key learning from those 18 years, but you had your eye on something over here?
Well, what I would say is management styles. Um, the management styles that people have that does not always
Okay.
translate into a successful career or a successful organization.
Okay.
Um, for instance, the company that I worked with, they had a leader who was more of the authoritarian type leader. So it was you do and you do. There was no inspiring, there was no coaching or anything else. So that bred other leaders to do so and follow. So you had that culture that
Yes.
created I would say at times, a hostile work environment
Hmm.
where people, it wasn't fun to go to work. It wasn't fun to go to work. And from that, I had to decide, do I continue to endure this or try something else?
Hmm. Hmm. And that
Yeah.
was the key point in that trying something else that led you to this new role. But the learnings you picked up from that, lots of people that I hear from people all the time, they're in jobs, they're in careers, they really don't want to do it, but they're doing it because it is the means to an end, and they're afraid to make the step to try something else.
It's very difficult. It's very difficult to go out on faith, and it's similar to you fly a lot. It's similar to that nervous passenger, the
Okay.
person who is know and understand that it is safe or it is okay to do certain things, but they just don't have that, either that push from someone else or that network, but they don't have it within themselves at times to take that chance. And so sometimes it takes um, someone just going out on a limb, or someone in your network or your peer
Mhm.
group, to tell you it's okay, and then
Yeah.
you have to believe in yourself that it's okay to take this leap of faith.
Okay.
And that's what I think people, what I find is people also feel like their current employer or employment is all they have. So they feel like if they give that up, then they don't know what the unknown is.
Yeah. And they're afraid to explore. I've always said that you learn more from bad leaders than you do from good leaders, because I've had some bad ones too that could probably match what you've gone through. But I kind of figured that if I were to ever to be leading people, I all I'd have to do is do 180 from what they're doing, and I'd be okay. and that's what I built the style on. So did you look at that bad leader and said, well, if I'm in that role, here's how I'm going to do it. Let me develop my style.
Yes, and actually, that is part of our training as well. We all say take the good from the bad as well as the good.
Okay.
Like you said, you can see that bad leader and do that 180, or they might have something within them that they do well, but it's always a learning experience. Life is a learning experience. Having those bad situations are a learning experience, and it builds your character, so to speak. But yeah, if you took those characteristics that you did not like and couple those with the things that you see in good leaders, I
Okay.
think that makes you a much better leader.
Okay. So kind of build your own style. So talk to us about your style. How, so you've developed things along the line. So now you interview pilots, you interview prospective pilots, and then when they become pilots, you're on the technical side as well as the soft side, which is the leadership stuff. How do you combine those two? Because the technical is needed, but the style, how do you take the style and yeah.
So for me, I say I'm that transformational leader in
Okay.
that I try to inspire people to do well and seek their highest self. So in doing so, um, I'm currently trying to understand my why in life,
Ah,
and going through and asking and finding out people's why. So when I'm interviewing someone, the questions, we have a set of questions to ask. But for the technical part, I want to know the why. Why are we doing certain things? If they could tell me the why behind everything, um, and it could be just their why, that lets me know that they're ready for this, because anyone can memorize numbers,
yeah,
anyone can memorize policy and procedures. But if you don't understand the why behind those things, you don't have a learning
yeah,
process.
yeah.
So for me, I try to inspire, empower them to make decisions,
Mm,
to make choices, I guess to create that inspiration that they will follow me.
yeah. Mm,
And in doing so, it's similar to the position as an instructor. If a student is flying with me, I could tell them the procedure or I could tell them what to do. But if they ask me a question, I rather have them and I look it up. That way now they can see it. I can see it. It is not Cedric's words, it's the company's words. But now it gets us all involved in the why.
I read a book years ago, Simon Sinek, always
That's
start with
one of my,
why.
that's my favorite book.
But you'd be surprised when I ask people this question, because I do a lot of coaching on the side for people just getting into HR and leadership. And I said, well, can you give me your why statement? And they're like, what? I said, why do you want to do this? Do you know why do you want to forget about the technical side, the money and all that? Why do you want to do it? And I find people get stuck on that.
We do, because we don't put thought process into the why, or a deeper thought process into the why, and coming out with the emotional intelligence part of it, where we understand and know why.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've trained to do things and we trained to follow policy and procedures, and it has instructions, but then we don't see the vision of the why behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's, so I'm trying to find my why in life as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a consistent journey. I mean, we're all going through this because see, one of the things that I think people see is they see the top of the pyramid, but they don't know what you went through from Lake City to get to all of. They have no idea.
No idea. No idea. And that's why when I'm speaking to young men and women, I share that story, because a lot of them see me in uniform or others, and they think we were automatically just placed there.
Yeah.
They don't think that we had any ups and downs or trials and tribulations. So I
Yeah.
tell the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, I understand. So I want to do a shout out to my good buddy in Washington D.C., Jim Moy. Jim was also international. He and I were next door neighbors in Saudi Arabia. Now he's a big shot attorney in Washington D.C. He hates when I say that, but we talk through how do you, as you at one spot in life, and how do you get beyond that spot to get where you are, because he picked up and moved to Saudi Arabia the same as I did on a leap of faith. And he did that, and everything just kind of transpired from there.
Yes, it is. Like you said, it's a leap of faith because a lot of people, it's the unknown, the fear of the unknown,
Mm-hmm.
that nervous passenger. Someone else's, their life is in someone else's hand. So
Yeah,
when you, and I pick up and move to another foreign land or a new career, we don't know what's behind that move,
yeah,
or we don't know that
have
we
no
just
idea.
have to, we have no idea.
Yeah,
But once we make that move,
yeah,
it tends to work out.
yeah. So you got a fan. Okay, Katisha Blackwell says, Cedric, I'm so proud of you. Thank you for being a trailblazer and phenomenal role model for all of us. Us is the Pilots Association.
No, us is that is my sister. I did hi, hi sis. And no, I did not pay anyone to come on and comment.
That's okay.
But
That's okay.
no, my sister and you know, I know we talked about mentors, or we've had that conversation. That family members are very important as well, because they inspire me, I inspire them, and it's a back and forth thing. So she is one of my biggest champions, and I'm one of I admire her as well.
Okay, cool, cool. I want to also do a shout out for uh, Michael Bond says, what are your thoughts on pilots and mental health? Because, stress and all those things, how do you balance that out?
That is something that the FAA is taking serious now,
Yeah.
because there are people are living lives with trauma
Yeah.
and going through things, and to prevent accidents from happening, and also to allow people to still enjoy a career,
Hmm.
because mental health takes on different shapes and facets. It doesn't mean someone is and I hate to use the word crazy, but it's just that those are the things that people are think, or it becomes synonymous with people's idea of mental health, that someone has some issue that prevents them. But mental health is something that we all should seek.
Yeah.
Um, Having someone to just vent to, or just to listen, and then also unpack things.
Yeah.
We all have busy lives. We all have lives that are require great thought, and always thinking of the next thing, next planning. We need to unpack at times. So
Yeah.
mental health is key.
Yeah.
I'm glad that the industry is accepting that it is now something that they can work with without taking that joy away from people. Because it used to be, if you reported it that you had mental health issues, you were removed from flying.
It was a negative. Yes.
It was a negative. So people held that within, and they can continue to suffer within, because they
Hmm.
would not release or let anyone know that they needed help.
Hmm. Hmm. I want to go back to Jim for a second. I'm sure I keep calling him out. Once he reached the top, he spends a lot of time with the young people in high schools that are thinking about going to law school. He spends a lot of time mentoring young law school students. So when I think about your role as interviewing, and then you're working with them if they got through the process, give me the importance of mentorship. Who was important as a mentor in your life? Well, so we talked about the bad. I don't want to say we talked about the learning bosses, the ones you learn from.
Correct.
Yeah, talk about mentorship, the role that you play in giving back.
Well, some of my mentors, first and foremost, it would be my grandparents. They were the first ones to mentor me. Um, and I watched them. My grandfather had a fifth grade education, my grandmother a ninth grade education, but they were some of the hardest working people
Yeah,
I ever knew.
I know.
So they instilled that work ethic that I have. Then my mother. My mother is a story of perseverance. So she experienced childhood trauma, but it
Mhm.
didn't stop her. She never gave up, and that allowed me to see that no matter what happens in life, we can still continue.
Uh,
And then when I got into the industry, looking at learning about the Tuskegee Airmen and what they went through. Um, Tuskegee Airmen in the 40s trying to make a way, being told that they were not smart enough, were not capable of flying, and yet they became one of the most celebrated groups out there.
that's right.
But it wasn't without adversity, the racism, the bigotry. So for them to endure what they did, it told me I cannot stop either.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I have to find ways and solutions around those issues and how to work it to, but not give up, and
mm,
also learn how to fight without anger, without the face to face type thing.
yeah,
Just learn to conquer in different ways.
yeah.
So they were my mentors. And then one of my good friends, his name was Daryl Coleman. He was a gentleman who, or is a gentleman who, when I first got into the Air Force, he was one of those guys I saw in the flight suit. He was one of the flight mechanics who then became a flight engineer, and then he became a civilian flight engineer. So I followed his path, and he was able to create and open doors for many of us to move on to different arenas in the aviation career field. So he's one of the mentors. And then one of my friends, may he rest in peace, his name was Martin Scott. Martin was that gentleman who took us in little airplanes and we tested the envelopes. He would say, do this, and he would hold us to standards where it was much tighter than the industry standard. Say, if we were supposed to hold plus or minus 50 feet or 100 feet of our altitude, if we were off 20 feet or 10 feet or 5 feet, he was like, you're doing a very good job holding that. Now get to the altitude. So his standards were much tighter,
Yeah,
which helped me because we all know sometimes we have to perform above our level.
yeah,
And being comfortable performing above that level makes it where everything else is easy.
yeah,
It becomes easy. If you can perform above the standard, you don't have to worry about meeting the standard.
yeah. Because in your field, the standard is a standard, and you don't have a lot of room for
You
error.
don't have a lot of room or
Yeah,
flexibility.
yeah,
Outside those envelopes or those standards, people lives are in jeopardy. So,
mm, yeah. I see. I see.
and then one of my good friends, he was a captain. He was the first captain that black captain that I met at my previous airline, and he was one that he too had faced adversity, but he was still plugging along, flying along, and he taught me about financial management, the financial management side of things, because we're getting in this industry, we're making money, don't want to lose it or
What
don't
do you do with it?
mismanage.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
So he was one of those mentors that taught me a little bit about life after flying.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you and I coming from South Carolina, and the infamous and inspiring Ronald McNair, Dr. Ronald McNair.
Yes, yes,
Um,
yes.
my uncles and aunts were classmates of he. My mother was a classmate of his brother. So being around him, understanding and knowing who he was, truly said I could go beyond and
Mm,
reach for the stars.
mhm. So just to share with the audience, because a lot of our audience is global, Robin McNair was the gentleman. He was one of the people that were killed on that flight. Could you give us a little background on that for the global audience? Who
Yeah.
Robin?
So at night, I recall it's January 28th, 1986. The Space Shuttle Challenger, as it lifted off prior to orbiting, it exploded. And it has become a case study for many business schools about paradigm shifts now, where there was a process that kept going. People knew that something was wrong with what they call an O ring.
Mhm.
And an O ring is nothing more than a rubber seal, so to speak, between two pieces of metal or things like that. and it had been leaking, and people knew it had been failing, but nobody wanted to stop that process or the
Right.
launching of
Yeah.
the Challenger crash. So it was a go. And when they left it off, unfortunately, it exploded and killed everyone.
Yeah. Mm.
Um, but yes, he was one of my mentors, and I still consider a mentor.
Wow. Yeah, I remember when that happened. I had no idea he was from South Carolina,
Yes,
and
yes,
like, I'm like, whoa, okay, cool. Well, I kept my
right,
part of the country.
right.
We did, yeah, we did something
And
cool. So,
actually, he inspired another gentleman, retired General Charles Bolden, who became an astronaut and then NASA's former director. He's from South Carolina as well. So two astronauts from South
okay,
Carolina and
cool.
Columbia,
Yeah,
Columbia Lake City.
I'm getting a historical perspective here, things I did not know. So I say, I think you should, your daughter's just checking in. Yes, small brat 9945. She says, "So proud of you, Dad." I think that's
Oh wow!
yeah,
My, I didn't know that was her name.
yeah. Okay, I did a I did a session last week, and I had someone on who was a friend of my daughter, and I was talking to my daughter. She said, "Oh, I'm going to watch the show tomorrow." I've never watched it. I'm like, "Oh, I don't know why I got nervous." I said, "Because my daughter's never watched it, and then I got to hear her critique on the
Right,
back." Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right.
So expect that. But you walked us through an amazing journey. From going through the trials and tribulation of coming out of school, not knowing, having dreams didn't materialize, going to school, getting inside, wanting you to move forward, and then your grandparents. That's a masterclass.
It is. And I'm fortunate to be able to unpack that now because I went through a period of feeling like I did not accomplish much and that I should have been given more opportunity. And then I had to sit back and said, look at and really reflect and say, people in my life gave me what they had, and that's maybe been all that it was all that they knew, but they gave me the best of that. And it was up to me to take that, unpack it, and package it into something to make me who I am. So
Mm.
I am very fortunate of the people that have played a role in my life.
Okay, cool, cool. So let's talk about how do you interview people? How do you interview pilots? I mean, you're looking for technical side, but you're looking for something else. You're looking for something else to come through besides the technical piece, like kind of like your mentor was talking about.
Yes. Again, sitting there listening intently, I've become a good listener and to be able to recall um, information. So, one of the goals of our company is to hire the best person, not the best pilot,
Oh, wow. I love that.
because you can train someone to be a good pilot, but you can't train someone to be the best person or their highest person. So what I do is, much like you, listen to a lot of different uh, gurus, Simon Sinek and
Yeah.
others, and I try to listen to the message, and everything is a common message about how we treat others. I want that pilot who is going to be technically skilled, but that pilot who is also going to be caring. And that's
Okay.
one of our core values of my company, caring, because you want people to genuinely care about their job as well as the people that they transport. You can
Okay.
have a CEO like yourself, or you can have someone who is a janitor, but all those lives are the same.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter the position that they hold. We all are the same. So I look for someone who is honest, because you can tell in their stories. We have a series of questions that we ask. Tell me
Yeah.
about a time.
Yeah.
Yes, tell me about a time when you did this. Tell me about a time you encountered this. And if you listen, they will tell you who they are.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they will tell you if the story, and you begin to listen and hear if the story is fabricated, because you'll say, "Oh, I heard that the other day. Oh, I heard that." So
Yeah. Yeah.
so I listen for the genuine answer, the person who is truthful and has integrity. So those are the qualities that I look for the HR side of things. The
Yeah.
technical side, again, I can ask a question where they could give me a number or quote a procedure, but it's about getting to that why. Why are we doing this procedure? What is the outcome? What do we seek? So it's a two-part in trying to find that best person, but technically that person that has the emotional intelligence.
Yeah. Yeah. I was smiling when you said that because another South Carolina reflection point. My father owned a taxi company in Marion. He was very successful at that particular time, and he always would tell me, he said, "Listen more. Don't always talk." He said, "You learn a lot more by listening than you do by talking." And I always kind of took that to heart as I got into business again. Yeah.
So another organization that I belong to, one of the things we had to learn was a poem called Wise Old Owl. And it
Okay.
basically, to summarize it, was the owl. If you sit on the branch, you can hear everything. But while you're talking, if you're just there talking, you're not listening or learning. So Wise Old Owl just was able to just sit on that branch and just hear and soak everything in.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to do two shout outs for one of our frequent listeners, always a good listener from our side, Peter Piccinini. He's based in New Jersey, down near Monmouth County, but thank you, Peter, for always listening in. And Charles, I think he's probably a Q. He says, "Contribute you to the good bros." I know when I see bro, I know exactly what that is. I like those
Yes,
shares. You represent us as well.
Charles is also another leader in the industry. He's a captain at UPS, and he is uh, someone that also inspires others. And it's just this industry is large, but it's very small.
Okay.
And similarities of fraternal brothers and other things makes that bond even tighter.
Yeah. Another family representative, my son reached out to me. He said, "Oh, so you got Cedric on?" He said, he said, "Yeah, he's a bro." I said, "Okay, okay, I don't need to like this. I'm good."
You know, it's great because we're in every element of society, and all of us are doing very well
Yeah,
in our careers.
it's cool. It's cool. So let's talk about you. I mean, you've got so many things on your plate. How do you balance professional work with all of the other things? From the fraternities, from the aerospace professionals, and all the other things you're involved with. How do you keep balance?
That is probably the most difficult of all.
Yeah.
Because as we know, time is precious. Time is one of those things. Once you can't recreate time, or you can't get it back. So time is that precious element that we all live by. But for me, learning to say no.
Okay.
Learning to say no is the hardest thing. And it doesn't have to be a definite no or something that just stops the show, so to speak. It could be a no of saying, "Hey, I can't do it right now, but let's talk about it and reschedule or find a when I can do it." But it's one of those things where in the beginning I was always committing myself and I overcommitted, and I was not delivering a great product. I wasn't there in the moment. I was rushing from one moment to the next, and I found that I was doing myself a disservice, and those who I was serving, I was giving doing a disservice as well. So I learned to say no, but again, learn to balance that by saying, "I will love to do it. I will do it, but can we find another date to do it?"
Okay. Okay. I just learned that same thing because my work is international. It's always time zones. And sometimes I would agree to do something. It sounds great in the moment, but when I've got to get up at 3 a.m. in whatever country I'm in to get online to do something, it is like, why did I even agree to do this in the first place? So I had to learn the same thing.
Yeah, I've jumped on airplanes to go to a commitment, driven hours upon hours, just because once I say I'm going to do something, I don't like to let people down. But
Mhm.
it's one of those things where you just have to say, "Hey, I can't do it right now. I'll do it another time." or
Mhm.
now with technology, we can do it via the internet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, I always look at the captains as the CEO of. I always tend to look into things based on the work I do, organizational dynamics. So I look at the captain. You're the CEO of that flight. You're in charge of the technical side. You're in charge of the people that's doing the people side. Did you have to learn that role, or maybe you don't see it in that context?
No, that is true. And actually, for many companies, my company in particular, we actually go through a leadership course in that and understanding your role as a captain. And it doesn't mean that you're the absolute power, but it just lets you know what power you do have and how you have to blend those work groups together. So, yes, learning the importance of that role and respecting the power that you have in that role plays a lot.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's just like anything else, trying to be that best person, trying to be that leader. You want to help and make people and inspire others to be leaders within that group setting or that team setting. So that is something that we do learn.
With so many things going on in the aviation field today, you see mishaps and all those kinds of things, and with all your work, and how do you consistently learn? What is your learning style? I mean, you've got the technical side you've got to deal with, and then there could be a leadership class that you're trying to become a better version of you. How do you continuously learn from your side?
Well, believe it or not, we are always challenged with learning. Like you said, there's new developments in technology or just things happening, current events. And what I try to do is I built a network of friends that I can bounce off. I call them my personal think tank.
Okay.
So whenever I have something or I face a scenario or I want to learn about something, I put it in our chat group, or I will call them up and ask them their opinion. Hey, this happened to me. What do you think? Hey, did I do this right? And then also, what I do is I watch the TV show Air Disasters,
Uh,
or there's a TV show that has events that happen with aircraft accidents or incidents. I watch that because um, along with we have safety messages from the industry as well as the company. So I couple those together because I, in my mind, say if I can read and see what others have done or didn't do, then I won't make those mistakes.
mm,
So I try not to be a case study for someone else.
yeah.
So I either read materials, stay in the books, utilize my personal think tank, and that helps me where I'm always thinking about what
Mm,
if. That
mm.
way, it keeps me from making those mistakes.
That's a good show. That's a favorite show of mine, Design from Disaster. Now, here's my take on that: is that so when I counsel and work with leadership, I say if that project did not fail, you got to pull back. It's called after action review. I think the Army came up with that.
Correct.
What worked, what didn't work, and what can we do differently? And I'd look at that concept and I say, you design from disaster. If it didn't work, you fix it for next time, and then you may have a higher level of probability of success on the next go around. But you have to learn from that.
You have to learn from it,
Mm.
and you can learn from your mistakes as well as others, and hopefully your mistakes will end up being a disaster.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So at this stage, I think it was it 39 years. Wow, you don't look older than 30.
34. I'm not there yet. I have
30,
a few more
34.
enjoyable years.
Yeah, we're cool with that. We're cool with that. But 30 plus. Uh, what if you look back on your career? What stage would you say that you're most proud of?
So my most the moment or the stage that I'm most proud of is my interview with my company and being hired by my company.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. That was the transformation of who I was to who I am now.
Mm,
Because um working for that previous company under
okay.
bad leadership and bad conditions, I felt like going into this interview, I had to give my all. I had to give my all. I
Got to
could not.
knock it
I had to knock it out. Could not fail because I did not want to go back into that toxicity.
out.
So the pressure was on.
Yeah.
So much so that when I started interviewing, I prior to the interview, the interviewer saw me and he said, "Stay out here for 5 minutes, gather yourself." He could see how nervous I was. He could see how nervous I was.
Yeah.
And that moment, um, I knew I was at the right place
Okay.
because he understood. He was able to read the room and he understood.
Mm.
So when I went in, I started doing my interview. I started answering the question. And it was almost like there was no question that I did not know the answer to. And I just gave my all.
Mm, mm.
And I even created a portfolio of my life and things that awards that I had received, and I gave it to them. And at the end, they actually asked, "Could I have? Could we keep this?" And then they found out because of the rules of engagement, they couldn't because they would. So I said that was my moment. A week later, he called me and he called to offer me the job, and he said that I had been his best interview in his entire career. And that inspired me to want to become an interviewer because
Wow.
that captain is well respected in this industry as well as my company. But
Okay.
he saw something in me, and that said that I could do the same for someone else. I can bring someone else
Mm,
and their highest level or bring out the highest level in them.
mm.
I've had encounters where after an interview, I'm bad with names. I'm bad with names. I'm bad. I know faces and I hear voices.
Okay.
So I've encountered people who have come up to me on a layover in Seattle, or um, one was in Mexico City and said, "You interviewed me." He's like, "You interviewed me." I was like, "Really?" It's like, "Yeah, I did." And once they start talking, I can hear the voice. I can hear it. I
Okay.
replay it. But that there shows me that I'm doing the right thing. I'm selecting the right people, but that was my transformation from where that captain saw what he saw in me, and now I do and see it in others.
Wow. But it shows the impact we can have on people just for the small thing. Because what I gather from that is the interviewer came out and said, "Take 5 minutes, and we'll do it in 5 minutes." In
In
other
fact,
words, because they saw what you were going through, and they wanted you to calm down. We're going to be cool. And then you go in there and you nail it. Best interview I've ever had from a senior level pilot who's interviewed probably hundreds of people.
hundreds of people, hundreds of people, and we just have to find. And during I had to interview to become an interviewer, and
Okay.
in that I told them I want to remove myself from it, but to be able to also bring in the things that I do cherish about myself, the ability to listen, the ability to see beyond the exterior, because sometimes it's just redirecting a question to get the answer. They
Hmm.
might hear it one way, but if we can redirect them, they
Yeah.
can now bring out the answer or bring out themselves in that answer. And it's just listen, being an intent listener.
Wow. Wow. As we begin to close out, one of the reasons that we like the show is so popular, it's called the Master Class of Leadership, is that we like for people to discuss their career journey because sometimes we get fooled, specifically with social media. We see all of this and we think it's all of that, and we have
No idea.
no idea what a person has gone through. And so I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. I know you had to rearrange your schedule. We've been working on this for some time, but I thank you for carving out the time to be with us today. So do you have any closing thoughts that you'd like to leave the audience about the show, or your thoughts on what we discussed today?
Well, I first and foremost, again, thank you for having me and your team. It has been a 2 year journey now, you and I back and forth, but we finally did it.
We finally did.
One thing that I would, a couple of things that I would lead with. One is, it doesn't matter where you are or where you came from. It doesn't dictate where you can go. It doesn't matter where you came from or who you were or are. It doesn't matter, because you could be anyone or become anything you want if you believe in yourself. And once you get there, you have to learn to silence the voices of the imposter syndrome. You have to learn to block out the white noises,
Yeah.
because they become powerful. They
Mhm.
become powerful to the fact that it could be debilitating in that telling you can't do or you don't belong. And once you feel secure in who you are and your person, you silence those white noises or that imposter syndrome. So,
Mhm.
yes, I've learned throughout journeys, believing in myself, believing in those around me, and supporting others with that dream as well. Because it's once you climb the ladder, or
Yeah.
even this, it becomes tougher, and you start questioning yourself even more.
Yeah, but you look back at that ladder and the starting point, and both of us, you look back to South Carolina, we was in high school. It's a long climb. I
It's a
always
long time.
so everybody always will tease me, small towns that we grew up in. You can reference this. I always say 3 traffic lights. The town I grew up in had 3 traffic lights. 3.
Right,
So
right.
that gives you some semblance of how small it was, and to grow from there. And I live between Dubai and New Jersey. And you're started from same space, and now you're captain of a major airline. I mean, it says a lot.
I'm very fortunate. I feel blessed.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. So as we begin to wrap up, I want to extend my thanks to each person who's listening in today, carving out the time and listen to our conversation. But what I'd like to ask you is to share this across the social media space, across all your platforms. Like it, comment, and join the conversation. We do this every Friday. So thanks for being a part of the journey. And until next time, keep leading with vision and purpose. So, Cedric, thanks a lot. Stay online, and as we begin to close out.
Thank you, Ryan, and I will. Thank you.
Okay.
Take the CEO series with you anywhere, anytime. All episodes are now available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and major streaming platforms. It's not just an interview. It's a masterclass in leadership.